Okay, folks, this is man. Why do these Eva scenes just make me feel so conflicted? On the one hand, great in terms of acting, but in terms of just the characters involved, I don't know. So essentially, I wanted to start off this episode review talking about the confrontation at the country club where Eva and Ted are coming in and they run into Kat. Oh, also, despite my feelings, nah, 10 out of 10 because the Danny and Bill scenes, and then of course the scene where all the fellas are in the office. That just made me love the episode way more than I initially thought I would. But yeah, so Ted and Eva arrive, and Ted makes a comment about how he never sees Kat anymore. But to be completely honest, it's kind of twofold. On the one hand, you wanna blame Ted for spending more time with Eva than the daughter he's known her entire life. But at the on the same token, you got to remember that, well, Kat has pretty much, dove head first into this whole Leslie investigation. But on the other hand, it's like, well, if Ted was taking more of an initiative to, take Leslie down and handle it, then Kat wouldn't need to do this. So, But Kat has to come back saying, oh, that the Royals call it what? An heir and a spare? So it's the fact that you're too busy with Eva to even, spend time with me. So, I don't know. It's just basically Kat feeling some kind of way about Ted acting as though things have just moved on and she was never there. And Ted mentions how there's more than enough room for both daughters in my life. And I can't believe he's saying this, but he says it to Kat's face. Eva is an instant fit for your old job. And Eva has gone so far as to say that she has a huge learning curve ahead, but at the same time, Kat thinks that letting Eva into, her dad's work life is a mistake, given the fact that when you really think about it, Dad, Eva and her mom are just an evil version of me and Nicole. Me and my mom. Yeah, that is an interesting comparison. And Kat rattles off Eva's list of crimes and whatnot, even going so far as to cover up her mom's involvement with the Laura situation. That's pretty much, her drawing her line in the sand. And of course, Eva says like, whoa, what do you mean? What could I have given the police? So Kat has flashback to the closet in regards to the helmet and gloves, but Ted tries to, stop a fight from breaking out, even going so far as to say that they have a lot in common if you take the Leslie factor out of the picture. And I'm just like, Ted, bro, this is not the time for this. So he actually asked Kat to, join them for a meal, but she gloats to Eva's face that, oh no, I'm having dinner with Tomas, and she leaves. And after that, Ted actually spots Kenneth from across the room and tells Eva, hey, sorry, baby, I gotta go. There's an emergency. So he runs off. So let's go over to Bill's office where Haley comes up to chat with Caroline. And basically she's there to pick up the patient. But, Bill had actually took off a while ago. And when the senator arrives, Haley leaves and he waits in his office. AKA Mr. V, Vernon. So Bill, oh man, rather than being at the office as Haley expected, Bill has made his way over to Danny. So he comes in with his cane and Danny gives him a drink. And the thing is, Bill is using this place as a safe haven because of the fact that, Haley has turned their home into the Prohibition era. What was that, like the 1920s or whatever? Where basically to, secure his health, she got rid of their home bar. And Danny's like, well, I don't blame her. So he goes and this is one of those moments where it's like, Lord, please don't let this fuel Danny's flame for Bill. He admits that nobody knows him the way she does, and when I was in that hospital bed, I didn't know if I would ever be myself again. But when you came in there, you just looked at me and you read me hook, line, and sinker, mind, body, and soul. You grabbed my hand and you brought me back from that funk I was in. That's when it hit me that I did you wrong. And she's like, well, could you elaborate? Like, what exactly does it mean? And he says, like, look, well, just to be clear, I'm not coming back to you. I'm choosing Haley. And Danny's like, did I invite you to come back? And technically she did during week 1, right before they got married, but that's neither here nor there. But then Bill explains that, I felt trapped in our marriage and you didn't seem to notice at all. She kind of wrote it off as like, well, Bill, I just thought you were having some sort of midlife crisis and would get past it. But he kept telling himself that their marriage ended long before they officially got the divorce. And I was just going through the motion for years. And I just thought it would continue indefinitely until I met Haley. And from there, Bill clarifies, like, what happened was a long time coming. It wasn't just Haley. So Danny, starts to be honest with Bill, saying that you wrecked me. And Bill can finally see the pain and he should have handled things differently. But he was too much of a coward to face the reality of the situation. And more importantly, face himself. So in order to move forward, he should have been, honoring her. Essentially, basically, honored Danny and all she provided him with, as opposed to the way he cheated in their freaking bedroom. But he does apologize and, acknowledges, reopening the old wounds. And Danny just says that, she's been waiting a long time to hear it. And those wounds never really closed. So, she just felt like after what happened, there was something missing. And Bill just went on to build a life with someone else while she was just, just essentially run over. Roadkill at that point. So from there, he mentions that a situation from the past has made him self-reflect and is giving him grief right now. So essentially, he's referring to the Martin situation. But Danny is happy he came by, and he does kind of joke that, wow, it only took me to have my body shut down to have my past flash before my eyes to realize how wrong I was. But he does try to extend an olive branch, meaning that he hopes that the moment they have right now, where there's no animosity or, just anger, could be their relationship or their dynamic moving forward. But she does say that, I can't promise that, Bill. I can't promise being all light and positive and sweet, but I am glad you're not dead. And he's glad that she's glad. And he gets up, hobbles out with that cane, and then she starts breaking down. So in the midst of it, Haley actually shows up. And they kind of have their own bickering match about Bill. So from there, she doesn't want Danny mistaking Bill coming by as nothing more than a nostalgia trip. Basically saying that he's not choosing you, he's still with me. And Danny pretty much claps back saying that, look, if I were you from, say a year ago, and you're 6 months into your marriage now, she basically did the math. But Haley's like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me, question my relationship with Bill. But hey, guess what? The reason he hooked up with me was because he was bored with you, Danny. So from there, Danny says like, well, unlike you, I was the ride of Bill's life, not just a ride in bed. So essentially, man, I can't believe it. And this goes back to what was it last week when Haley was feeling uncomfortable by Danny's presence in the hospital room. I was a roller coaster on a skyscraper. And basically just diminishing what Haley and Bill have. And fans have said this for a while. Essentially, Haley is a person of lust, whereas with Danny it was love. So Haley then, again throws in her face about the baby and whatnot, and tells Danny that I'll die waiting. You're going to die waiting if you think Bill is going to come back to you. So Haley actually crouches over in pain, and Danny, mocks her, saying, "Oh, what is the imaginary fetus in pain?" Man, that's messed up. So after we go from the drama at Danny's house, we actually go over to Martin and Smitty. Martin asks Smitty about, Detective Malone, and Smitty isn't sure he should say anything, given that the last time I mentioned his name, you had one of those little episodes of yours where you spaced out. And he keeps digging, but Smitty finally tells him about the mystery money that caused Malone to become a millionaire in a short amount of time. So he is pretty much, taken aback when Martin yet again brings up the fact that he doesn't like Smitty working on the story and suggests he drops it. But Smitty, again, is a freaking journalist, so Martin doing these things isn't going to do much to convince Smitty to let it go. He knows something is off about Martin, and it has to do with this detective. So he demands Martin just tell him the truth. And Martin, being Martin, just deflects, saying, "I gotta go, and you need to drop this story because nothing about it is going to do anything good. If nothing else, this story, well, no story, whatever it is you're working on, is as important as the future of our family." So from there, we go over to Bill's office, and Tomas actually runs into Vernon, who's waiting in Bill's office. And he's like, "Oh, is there anything I could do for you while you wait?" He's like, "Oh, no, I'm here for Bill, and Bill's the only person I need to see." So while Tomas is still in the room, Elon, Jacob's father, is brought in. And after that, Tomas, says, "Oh, actually, I have dinner plans with your granddaughter." And after he leaves, before he leaves, Vernon's like, "You don't need to tell anyone I was here." "Oh, understood." So he leaves, and then we got Detective Marcel and Joey come in, and they wonder where Martin is right now. But Vernon's like, "Oh, well, he is standing for his family." So essentially, they talk about how the story could come out involving Martin and what happened with Kenneth and his brother that night. So Vernon says that I'll need to handle Smitty because, of course, he's looking into this story. So Elon doesn't want what happened that night to come out. It's like, "Look, we need to keep everything under wraps." So Ted actually shows up, and he wants to know, like, why I wasn't invited to the party. He saw Kenneth tonight, and I came over to warn, you all that he's still out there somewhere. And he did what he had to do 2 years ago. And on top of that, he's determined as ever to protect Martin from, this story blowing up. Bill actually comes in, and they talk to Ted about, well, if you stay, you'll be in debt to all of them. And Joey explains that the only way they can get away with this is if they hold together strong, which is, it's incredible. It felt like the Avengers or a Power Ranger team up or something. You just never expected to see all these characters in the same room because of the same story. So then Martin, of all people, shows up, and he is pissed due to the fact that this whole operation has been happening behind his back to protect him. And he thinks his dad, was an innocent bystander who was just dragged into this when he actually knew what happened all along. So Martin, like a dumbass, thinks that he needs to handle this by himself. And he actually has a moment because Marcel is like, "You know what, maybe it is a good idea to have him involved." And then Martin has more flashbacks, and Marcel on that night is like, "Get him out of here." And then this is a serious one because, yeah, Martin has those episodes, but this time it looked like he was about to have a freaking stroke. So Vernon says that, Ted has Martin and they're gone, but we'll fill him in on what's going on after we straighten out the details. So over at the country club, Tomas meets Kat at the table where they're about to have dinner. and he basically tells her how beautiful she's getting. So she actually promised him a night of no work, no drama, just us. And wow, she actually tells the chef to fix up a Spanish meal just for her Rico Suave. And as they sit down, Kat notices Eva is across the room and complains that Ted should have taken the trash out. So, interestingly enough, Tomas and Eva kind of exchange a look at each other, and it's like, mm-hmm. So from there, Kat tells Tomas, like, look, you met me at the worst moment of my life, but you've been there for every important moment as well. And Tomas just says that I want to be everything you've been waiting for. And she even goes on to say, I have one more surprise for you. Actually, in the midst of their sweet moment, guess who comes over to the table? And it's Eva, and chats with Tomas about the book they've been reading, because if I remember correctly, didn't Eva loan Tomas that book, that science fiction romantic novel? So Kat, rightfully goes in on her for interrupting, and Eva leaves, and then Tomas kind of sticks up for Eva, like, Kat, why'd you have to do that? So Kat is yet again like, look, Eva is clearly trying to ruin our night. So Tomas apologizes and say, like, look, let's just rewind the conversation a few minutes to where you're talking about how great of a boyfriend I was. And Kat says that she wants tonight to be the night, as in bow chicka wow wow. Oh, and speaking of couples, we go over to Naomi and Jacob, and she's giving him one heck of a massage to the point where he's groaning like he's being convicted of some demons in the church. Like, And from there, they talk about the whole Elon and Marcel thing, due to the fact that Jacob's detective senses are going off about how what his dad told him about the detective aren't really matching up. And from there, he just feels like his dad is unaware of Detective Marcel's true motivations and actions. So at some point, his dad will come out of this looking incompetent because this was happening under his nose, or corrupt. Yet he can't think of the possibility his dad is on a take two. So this continues over to Orphe Jeans, where Smitty and Jacob meet up to talk about the situation. And the fact that Martin had a huge reaction to the story that Smitty is pursuing on the detective. And he feels like Martin knows something about this situation, is afraid of the detective, but he's not letting him know about it. And he also brings up to Jacob the recurring nightmares that Martin has been having for quite some time, and how it might be triggered from the name Malone. And from there, after this was a flashback to the night of a political meeting, and Martin came in. He had different clothes on and claimed that he had changed a flat tire. So this was probably from 2 years ago. And when Smitty's like, wait, why do you look so wiped out? And Martin just goes off on him, and Smitty just didn't ask about it again. So it turns out that after looking at the dates, Marcel got that huge deposit in his bank account not long after the night of that big event. So if Malone is possibly linked or some form of threat towards his husband, he's going to find a way to take him down. So things are heating up, and the episode dropping later today is probably going to continue the momentum. So with that being said, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you all in the next video.